Welcome to another edition of Journey of Hope. Lots happened during this last week. I don't know about you and your home, but we want to welcome you to another program. Cancer is a sobering word. It's a frightening word, but it's a diagnosis, not a death sentence. Many people from around the world come to Loma, Linda to be treated for many different types of cancer. Many of them undergo the treatment and then it's taken care of and they move about with the rest of their life. The patients that we interview and the people that we interview on this program are people that I've said are not only survivors, but they're thrivers. And our special guest today, Dan McAleer from New Jersey, is one of those individuals that received the sobering words, "You have cancer." And he's heard it over and over and over again. And he has pursued and gone on and encountered every obstacle that he's met with courage, tenacity, and with hope. Dan, it's good to have you here.
My pleasure to be here.
We have people from around the world that are watching, and I wanted you to share your journey, because it's been an incredulous journey that continues even on to this day. And like all of us, we're on a journey. And it has many different steps and turns and twists, and doesn't always go exactly the way that we think that it's going to go. But let's share with me and with the audience where you're from. I know you're back on the East Coast, but you have a very interesting background. So let's tell us a little bit about yourself and where you were born and raised.
Well, I was born in Camden, New Jersey, which is right across the river from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And then I was raised in Philadelphia. And
You went to, where did you go to school then?
In Philadelphia.
Okay.
And I went to college in Villanova, Pennsylvania, a suburb of Philadelphia. And then I went to law school in North Dakota.
In North Dakota,
Yeah.
Big difference between Philadelphia
yes.
and North Dakota.
Wonderful place to live, but kind of cold to retire
It's
at.
got to be a place. So anyway, what did you take in undergraduate work?
Accounting.
You took accounting.
Accounting, because I knew that major would give you a job when you got out.
Always something you could rely on.
Yes. And when all my classmates were interviewing and they weren't getting offers, I paid attention and I answered the question when they asked, "Are you willing to relocate?" And I said, "Yes." They said, "Where?" I said, "Anywhere. I'm single. I'll go wherever you want me to go."
Is this with a degree in accounting?
The accounting firms.
Okay.
So I got a lot of offers, but didn't take any of them. And my aunts had treated us to a graduation trip to Bermuda. And when I came back, somebody said, "The law school exam's in a couple of days. I'm going to go out and take it. What do you want to do?" I said, "Oh, I think I'll go with you."
Now, who is this now? You're
a friend of mine.
A friend.
A friend
Just
of mine.
on the spur of the moment said, "Hey, I'm going to go and take an exam for the law school."
Yeah, and went up and did well enough to be accepted, and that's how I became a lawyer.
No kidding. You just almost
was just
spur of the moment.
Something
you went,
happened.
Took the law exam, did well, didn't prepare for it.
Couple days.
Couple of days preparing for the law exam, took the law exam, and it was enough for you to get into law school. So where did you go to law school then?
I started in Villanova University,
Okay.
and then the Vietnam War was on, and my classmate sitting to my left elbow was drafted out of there, so I joined the Coast Guard. And then
This was in between, while you were in law school, so you went and joined the Coast Guard.
Yeah. And
prior to finishing?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's his first year. So then we came, he got out of the service before I did, and he was told it would take another year before he could get back into school, but he could go to North Dakota today, you know. So I contacted his father, and he called up the dean. When my turn came, they said, Yeah.
So you
we
guys
did that to
took
avoid
the
an
law exam together. He went in the service. He was in a different branch.
Yeah.
He got out and ended up going to North Dakota because it was available.
Were available. Yeah.
And then when you get out, you find out what he's doing, and it was available.
Yep.
So where in North Dakota?
Grand Forks, the University of North Dakota.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you went to law school there, and I'm sure they had nice, balmy winters.
It would start snowing on Labor Day, and it would still be snowing on Mother's Day and Memorial Day.
I know, long, cold winters, lots of snow. Yeah.
40 below zero.
Oh, unbelievable. So you finished law school. Now, had you found your wife by this time?
Yes, I knew my wife in the 5th grade.
From the 5th grade.
5th grade.
Some guys spot things early.
Well, I was the last to know.
Okay.
And when we finally announced our engagement, it was in the 2nd year of law school, one of our best friends said, I could have told you that 15 years ago.
Serious?
Yeah. So everybody said, yeah, you're the last to know.
You're a good match, huh? Now, where was she from?
Philadelphia.
From Philadelphia.
And her brother's name was McGee, so he sat right behind me, because in Catholic school, everything's done alphabetically.
Alphabetical, sure.
So McAleer McGee, he was right behind me. I got to know him, and then met my wife.
The sister.
Yeah.
Okay. But that was in the 5th grade. So then
grade.
you went into the service. I mean, had you developed a relationship prior to going into the service?
Oh, yes. We were friends all throughout.
Oh,
we didn't always like each other growing up.
Okay.
But
in the later years,
Yes,
in high
we did.
school and college, you developed a relationship.
Yeah.
So after you got out of the military, is that when you
I went back to school.
You went back to school, and when did you get married? Your 2nd year of law school?
Yes.
Okay. So you're living in North Dakota, and then from where did you go when you finished up?
Well, when we finished, I was lucky enough to be offered a clerkship with the Supreme Court of North Dakota, which is quite an honor. But my wife and I thought about it and decided we love the shore, we love the ocean, and we declined.
And that is a long place from the shore.
Right, and we knew if we accepted, we would be there for the duration of our working careers.
Yeah.
So we made the decision to return home.
So you graduated, had this offer, and moved back home. So back home was Philadelphia?
Yes.
Okay. And then did you open up a practice on your own?
No, when you're young and starting out, you first take the job that you can get. We have to do a clerkship at that time in Pennsylvania, mandatory. And it used to be they didn't have to pay you at all. You had to do it. So when I came of age to do it, they had to pay you something. So they interviewed, and I clerked for a law firm in the summer. They offered me a clerkship, and I went back to North Dakota for the last year.
Of the clerkship?
No, well, you do it during the summer.
During the summer. Okay,
and then
so
I
you
go
went back
back,
and finished up.
Finished up, and then I came back, and the senior partner said, "There's been a little screw up here." He said, "We've, unbeknownst to me, my partner offered a clerkship to another fella, and he said, so now we got 2 clerks, but we only have 1 salary, and that's $80. And if you'd like to split it each, you can have the job."
Oh.
So we had no choice because
So you
it's mandatory.
took it and split it.
We took our $40 a week and did that. And from there, after we passed the bar, we then stayed with that firm for a couple of years, and then moved to another firm which did a different type of law, and I was there for 15 years. We represented the Philadelphia firemen.
Oh, did
and
you?
the police officers and a lot of other city employees, as well as hospital workers, in their occupational injuries and diseases. Mm-hmm. And then in 1985, I decided to go out on my own and develop my own practice, which I then did.
For many, many years there.
Yeah.
Again in Philadelphia?
In Philadelphia.
Okay. So, and you have children?
Yes, I'm blessed by 4 children.
And I know you've been married 42 years.
42 years. My wife, Peggy, is here today, and the backbone of our relationship. She keeps you on the straight and narrow and provided us with 4 wonderful children.
And are they also back on the East Coast?
They all are on the East Coast. The oldest daughter is in Florida. She's a speech pathologist, and she's worked for 15 or 18 years for an Adventist hospital in Florida.
Oh, really?
And then my second daughter, she's also a speech pathologist. She lives in Maryland, and she also works for an Adventist hospital. And then my next daughter, I refer to as my third daughter. She gets mad when I refer to as the third daughter. So I say she's my favorite daughter. And she is a registered nurse at the world-famous Children's Hospital in Philadelphia.
Okay.
And she was in the heart and lung transplant unit, and then in the ER, and then in the cardiac step-down unit. And she loves the ER. She likes the action.
Well, I'm sure you're proud of each one of your children. How many grandchildren?
Well, I have one more child, and that's my son, Christopher.
Okay, one more.
And he is a graduate of the University of Delaware with a master's in economics. And he just finished an internship at the Department of Economic and Office Development for the state of Delaware.
Really?
And then he's, like a millions of others, looking for that job.
First job, yeah. Yeah.
And we have 3 grandchildren, one in Florida, he's a boy, and then we have 2 in Maryland, and we have one on the way in Delaware.
Oh,
and,
that's great.
She is due on tax day, April 15th.
Talk about timing. Okay, Dan, things are going fine for you. Your business is going well. Your children are all doing great. Your grandkids are coming along. And then a few years ago, you found out that you had cancer. Tell us what happened. This is the first time.
Oh, the first time was back in 1994.
Back in 94.
And it was strange. I would see, only in the men's room at work, under fluorescent lights, I would see a little spot in my left temple area. Couldn't see it at home when you shaved in the morning, and didn't know what it was. You dismiss it, think it's the lighting. But then my wife was seeing a dermatologist, and I'm sitting across the room from the doctor, and my wife says, "Doctor, would you look at this?" And he just took one glance, jumped out of the chair, came over and said, "We're going to give you a biopsy right now." So we did, and it turned out to be a basal cell carcinoma.
Okay.
And then I underwent the Mohs treatment, surgery, where they
Take out.
Yeah, and they had to do it like 4 times till they got it, clear margins. And then normally they have a plastic surgeon patch it up right away, but he wasn't in that day. So I had to come back for surgery. And then they didn't tell me, well, we're just going to take care of it. So they put you out, and then I wake up and they had slipped me from here to here, taken
Wow.
the skin out of here to put up here, and they explained later that you only blush from the neck up. So that's why they took it out of there. But I woke up with my ear sewed almost over there, and I'm like that for 3 weeks. And then they had a tennis ball sewed to my head for 3 weeks. So I had to go into hibernation for a few weeks.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. And I never thought about cancer after that. And
It was all behind you.
Yeah, that was just a little blip and went on. And then on my 59th birthday, May 26th, I had a biopsy. And that was because my PSA still was normal. But I went to a urologist because of having erectile problems. And he did a digital rectal, and he said, well, I think we better put that thought aside and let's do something else. And they did the biopsy, and I remember laying on the table there, and they said, we're going to take 13 samples. And then you start counting them. You hear that gun go off each time, and then you think, finally, I made 13. And then the head surgeon comes in and says, give him a couple more. And you hear that gun go off.
And I need to let our audience know that you don't need to have that pain. There are ways to take care of that. But it was a horrible idea. So what did they find?
Well, then they found that there was prostate cancer, and the Gleason score, I forget the division, but the score was a 7. And by that day, then the PSA had gone from 3.7 to 5. So then they have you meet with the surgeon, and he said, I will operate. You're still a candidate. At that time, they only would do if you were under 60. They didn't want to do it if you were over 60.
So you're 59.
59, right on the line. And then they said, we also want you to see a radiation doctor, and met with him. So they both explained that one will interfere with the front part of your body, and the other one will interfere with the rear part of your body. What's your choice? So I opted for the front.
Okay.
And like so many men, when you hear that word cancer,
it's a frightening thing.
You want to get it out, especially when they say it's
right
contained. There. And I had one of the top surgeons in the country, and he did every conceivable test, including the rectal MRI beforehand, to make sure everything was contained. And then did the surgery.
Everything looked clear.
Everything looked clear. He did the surgery, and he came in the next morning and said, I had your nerves in my hand, and I had to make a decision, he said. So he said, I gave you the best chance.
Sure. He was concerned. He wanted to make sure that you had a successful outcome.
And he said he had to take a wide cut of the margins, but everything was clear. So I was happy about that. He was happy about that.
Sure.
But
so
then
they got it out.
They took it all out. And I, with all the risks of the 10% risk factor, 1%, I fell in every one of those little margins and had multiple
because I need to point out to many people have a very successful surgery and go on to live a very normal life. Some people have some other secondary side effects, but in your case, even though they removed the prostate, apparently there were still some cells that were out there. So you learned that even though you had the surgery, you still ended up with prostate cancer, still with cancer, because the PSA began going up.
After surgery, I had a period of 15 months where the PSA was negligible. And then I got a call when I decided I was going to leave my practice. And because when you get the word cancer, you think, wait a minute.
There's a time frame there.
Your whole mindset changes. So I made arrangements to sell my firm. And then when they were taking me out to have an office luncheon in honor of that, right before I left the office, the phone rings, and it's the doctor saying, it's back.
So what did you do then?
And you had to undergo the radiation. And at that time, they didn't have the IMRT.
So you got the traditional radiation.
External beam radiation.
So you had surgery, then you had radiation.
Right. And then PSA was down and negligible.
For a while.
For a while. And about 20 months later, it started rising. So then they brought me in and said, we'll start you on Lupron, the hormone injections.
Hormone treatments.
You get that every 90 days.
And it's an effective treatment for a while.
Yes.
Yeah.
They explained that. It'll work for a while. Some men will work for a long, long time, and others it
Different
won't.
people respond differently.
Yeah. Many go for years.
Yeah.
And I was on that for about 1.5 years, 2 years, and it started rising again. And
so you've had surgery, then you had and it worked for a while. I mean, it seemed like it worked for a while, but they began indications. So then you went on, had radiation, and that seemed to work for a while.
That's correct.
And then they put you on hormones. And then that seemed to work for a while. You are falling within that small percentage there. You're consistent anyway. So then what did you do?
Well, when it started rising again, even with being on the Lupron, they then decided to add another hormone, which is Casodex, and put me on that, and that worked for a while. And it put the PSA down. And then in July of 06, I believe it was, or 07, that started to lose its grip. And simultaneously, I'd had a sinus infection, and part of the treatment for that was antibiotics and steroids and a CAT scan. And I finally was able to get a copy of the CAT scan report. And in a footnote, there was a mention that there's a lesion in the right maxillary sinus area, and it's eroding the roots of the teeth, and it's possibly a dental process involved. Well, nobody mentioned anything to me about this. So I took it over to my dentist, thinking,
he'll be able to tell me.
He'll be able to tell me. He looked at that report in 1 minute and said, you go down the street right now and see the oral surgeon. And he did a biopsy right away, put me out, went up in there, and much to his surprise and mine, it came back as cancer.
So you had cancer now up in the jaw area.
Right.
Okay, and that's when, I think that's the first time I met you, was when you came out here to Loma Linda to be treated for that.
Right. And those two things came simultaneously.
A double whammy.
Same week. You know, the prostate's out of control, now you got this other cancer.
Oh, Dan. So you learned about Loma Linda, and you came out here, and that's when I met you. It was about over a year ago.
Yes.
Yeah, over a year ago. And so you came, and how many treatments did you undergo for that?
That was 42 treatments.
42 treatments. So now you've had prostate cancer, you had prostate surgery, then you followed it up with radiation, then you followed it up with hormones, you tried a secondary hormone, and things are all working for a little while, but then it gets kind of it continues growing, it doesn't go away, it keeps coming back, and then on top of that, then you find out that you got a cancer in the jaw. How are you responding to all of this?
Well,
it happens.
It happens, and you don't think it's happening to you, but somebody else.
It's a dream. It's got to be a dream. It's a nightmare. So I remember you got out here, and you were out here for a number of weeks, few months.
Came out for 2 months, and it turned out to be 7 months.
And it turned out to be 7 months. And you were treated for that, and then at the same time, you don't even have time to worry about your prostate cancer because you're being treated for this. You get through with that, and then the PSA begins going out of orbit, if I remember correctly. So you went over on the West Coast here and had some special treatment there. That kind of put a hold on it for a while. And I remember when you left, I said, well, we'll be seeing you. I know you'll be coming back. But what a surprise when I do see you when you come back. What kind of news did you share with me then? And this is just really several weeks ago now.
Well, the day I finished the treatment in January 27th, 2009, the doctors here did a PSA. And it had gone from 7 to 12 within a matter of weeks.
So it's rapidly increasing.
So that's where I was then, came under the care of a physician on the West Coast to handle that, and he very smartly came up with another hormone, nalutamide, and said it may work, may not. If it does work, it might only work for 8 to 10 months, which will be Christmas, which is right now.
This is a Band-Aid. I mean, our time is running out here, and I want to get to, you went over there, you received some treatment over there, it helped again for a while, but then there's another reason that you came back here. What was that? They discovered some...
When they did a PET-CT fusion study of the sinus to see how that worked, which it did very well, they found that the chain of para-aortic lymph nodes had lit up on the PET scan.
So you got cancer again in the lymph system here.
Correct.
And we were able to determine that in your particular case, for this particular situation, that proton would be a viable treatment for you.
That's correct.
At least it may not cure the disease, if I understand correctly, but it's going to stop things in its tracks for a while.
That's correct.
Now, Dan, we've got people that are looking, some of them that have just been diagnosed with cancer. You have been on an unbelievable journey. You take care of one thing and then something else pops up, and then you get temporary relief, and then something else happens, you get temporary relief, and then something else happens. You know, how are you and your wife responding to this? We've only got a couple of minutes. You've been here at Loma Linda. You've been taking part in the programs. What difference is all this making to you?
Well, life was a turmoil and a whirlwind with all of this going on. And all I can tell you is when we came to Loma Linda, and my brother came out with me initially, peace came over us. My brother, my wife, everybody. We knew we were in the right place and that I didn't have to worry about my cancer anymore. Somebody else
was going to take care of it.
was going to take care of it.
Well,
yeah.
Dan, you've heard me say many times, nobody comes here by accident,
No.
and you're a living testimony. You know, you're here for many different reasons. The cancer is one of them, but I'm glad that you've got a sense of peace because, you know, our motto is to make man whole, mentally, physically, spiritually, and emotionally. You know, I don't know what tomorrow holds for you or for me, but I'm glad to know who holds tomorrow. And I know that while you're here, you're going to get the very best possible treatment for you, for your cancer. And I know you've been participating. I think I've seen you a couple times over there at the church with, who's the pastor over there?
Randy Roberts.
Randy Roberts. And, you know, it's a wonderful setting there for you. And I know that we're going to have you out at our house here just very shortly for a dinner where we're going to have some other people out there. But, you know, you're an inspiration to me and some of the other patients that are coming in here and they're just getting a little treatment. They know it's like a mini radiation vacation for them. But you and your wife are on a journey. And I can't tell you why all this is happening, but I can tell you that God is going to continue to lead you step by step. For our listening audience, for those of you that are looking on, I'm Lynn Martell for the Journey of Hope and for LLBN. And Dan here is an illustration of somebody that is encountering one thing after another. But God is leading him, he's trusting in him, he's here, and God is not through with him. God's got a plan for him. God is going to see him through. He is able. And for those of you that are looking on, I want you to know that God has a plan for you and for your life. Give him a chance. He will open doors for you and close them and let his will be made known. God bless you.